I'm Jamey Applegate, Senior Director of DEI at Equity at Work, and this is your DEI Minute, your go-to podcast for leaders looking to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Whether you're just starting out with DEI or looking to sustain your long-term successes, each episode will provide you with the actions you can take to move DEI forward at your organization, all in 15 minutes or less. Join us every other week as we break through the noise and help you do DEI right. Let's get to it.
Before we get started, this is Michelle Pfefferman, and I'm really excited to let you know that my new book, Do DEI Right, is now available. This is your guide to the Equity at Work maturity model, which shows leaders how to make DEI part of every day and drive great results. You can get your copy through the link in the show notes or wherever books are sold.
Today, we are thrilled to welcome Dr. Tom Bourdon to your DEI Minute. Tom is a trainer, certified coach, consultant, and facilitator, and he is the founder and principal of Next Level Impact, a firm that supports people and organizations ready to turn their values into action. Tom's background is very impressive. He was a DEI lead at Staples and Big Commerce. He led Greater Boston PFLAG, and he directed LGBTQ centers at UCLA and Tufts University, where he also helped launch the Social Justice Initiative. He holds a doctorate in organizational leadership from Northeastern, a master's in education from UCLA, and a bachelor's in business administration from Babson College. His debut book, It Lit a Fire, is out now, and we are so thrilled to have him on the show. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Jamey. I was like getting over that part where I'm like, okay, yeah, enough of that.
I love it. I love it. No, it's always nice to be told how great you are. But so, Tom, let's just dive into the book, It Lit a Fire. You introduce readers to the Firestarter model. So for our listeners, can you share what the Firestarter model is and how it supports leaders?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Firestarter model, it's really just this simple, practical way for anyone to be able to drive intentional impact that's beyond themselves. So you're taking your values and what's important to you and you're putting it into action. So from the leadership perspective, it's really going to help leaders focus on the right priorities and then staying in the game without burning out, especially during these very hard times right now, and then choosing courage and courageous actions when it matters most. So that is the model in a nutshell. I even brought a little visual here, a DIY visual I put together for you of the Firestarter model. It's in the book. The three elements that you can see here in the model are pull, passion, and courage. And these are really the things that I've seen come up in every single impact journey that kind of I follow and I talk about in the book and through my career. So with pull, really this is allowing you to identify what is most urgent and really most meaningful right now. That's for you, your team, the culture around you, what do you actually need? Not, what's the loudest or demanding your attention the most, but what you actually need to be focusing on. And then passion, there is what's energizing you. That's your fuel. And really, if you don't have that fuel and that passion, it's almost impossible to stay engaged and grounded and keep going long term, especially when things are so hard. So passion essentially is your motivation. And then courage. And courage is really about doing those hard things and making those hard calls. And I think so many of us kind of get stuck there when it comes to courage, whether it's speaking up or putting together the program, even, putting a post online sometimes. So it's taking intentional risks and challenging norms that we shouldn't be accepting and really addressing resistance and harm directly instead of trying to get around it. So, practical standpoint, it can give leaders the clarity and a roadmap. Is this the right focus? Do we have what it takes to move forward, our fuel, and are we willing to act?
I love it. I love it. And one of the things that I really think is great about the book is that each chapter obviously takes readers through the stages of the Firestarter model, but it also includes insights drawn from notable people. So Olympian Greg Louganis, comedian and talk show host Sherry Shepard, and trans activist Jazz Jennings are just among a few of the folks that are highlighted. Were there any particularly valuable leadership lessons that you took from those folks that you're able to apply yourself, but also that you would want to share with other folks and really highlight for them?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So plenty of leadership lessons. And, I do want to start by emphasizing we can all be leaders, right? You don't need to be the leader of an organization or hold a certain title to lead and show leadership skills and to create impact. and some of the people in the book, hold leadership titles, and others are just very influential in their own way, whether it's, on an international level or in their own community. I think the one thing that really stood out to me the most that I think leaders need to keep in mind is that aspect of motivation and passion having a personal connection. I think a lot of times for leaders, especially like in corporate or organizations, they're thinking it might be the paycheck that motivates someone or the bonus at the end of the year or whatever it might be. But I think passion and motivation really, when you strip everything back, becomes a lot more personal in terms of what is going to drive you the most. It even kind of connects to that idea of people don't leave organizations, they leave managers, right? So how are you going to keep that fire alive so that you do give your best and you do keep going? And, I think about, so many different stories. Like, okay, you mentioned Sherry Shepherd, who's actually like a very dear friend of mine. And she is a comedian and a talk show host and everything. But like, if you strip back what it is that she's driving for, she wants to connect people. She talks about in the book, and she talks about how just we live in such a divided world, and people often feel like, oh, I have nothing in common with someone else, right? And she, through laughter, wants to connect people, even if it's just momentarily, for people to have that connection, that relief, that, that idea that we're not going to focus on our differences right now. We're going to come together and share a smile and share a moment and a laugh. I love that. And it came out in so many ways. Deborah Lee Furness is another person in our book. She's kind of this Australian icon. She has done such incredible work around children and advocacy for children to have homes. So she does a lot of work with children who have been displaced from their homes and they're in foster care, needing to find a forever family. And she talks in her story about, the personal drive that drove her to do this work based on when she and her then husband were trying to form a family and how hard it was. And she realized like this needs to change. So it had that personal connection. But then the ongoing connection is to do the work. She has 2 nonprofits now, and they do incredible things. She's like, I can't be the numbers person. Like, that'd kill me. I'm not a numbers person. I'm the creative. I need to put together the ideas, the programs, connect the people. So I do think, for any leader, you need to think of people as individuals. What is personally important to them? And think beyond the dollar signs. What else matters to them?
I love that. I was thinking about something you said at the very beginning of what you were sharing, where you kind of said, I want to pause and say that everyone can be leaders. How would you kind of differentiate between what this book and this model and the Firestarter model can be for someone who's maybe in that kind of C-suite executive leader role, obviously like some of the folks you were sharing about who are just like, they run the nonprofit, they run the organization, and so they can kind of maybe dictate their surroundings a little more and say like, I'm not the numbers person, I'm the visionary, versus someone who's maybe in more of like a middle level. Sort of how would you, so I guess like, let's go to that sort of middle level. I'm thinking of someone who's maybe like a DEI leader or a culture leader, but is not maybe a CEO of an organization.
Sure.
How can they, or what is some advice that you would give them for how to like maintain that passion, even though they can't always necessarily dictate the environment around them?
Yeah. Well, like I do a lot of work with employee resource groups, right?
Yep.
So when you think about ERG leaders, pretty often these are people who are not necessarily going to hold high titles, right?
Yeah.
But they are still given one of the most important roles in an organization, right? Like bringing people together, making them feel valued and like they belong there, giving opportunity, right? Now, what can I, as an entry-level programmer, do compared to the CEO? You can actually do a lot. So I think it's about stripping away the power dynamics and the titles and focusing solely on what's the goal? What's my North Star, right? Do I just want people like me to feel like we belong here, right? Like you can probably do that a lot more than the CEO can, right?
Yeah.
Because you hold the passion and the identity and the understanding. And then you figure out like, if I really want to create that kind of change, how can I work towards it? Like what's important to me? Am I going to write a thesis on it and hand it to the executive leadership team? No, I don't love writing. Am I going to put together a program with a panel that's really meaningful and where stories are shared and people are moved and they look at the world and the organization differently? You can have immense impact. So I think every one of us has our own ability, like our own unique way of creating change. That's kind of a tagline I use through the book. Like, how are you going to create change in the world in your own unique way? And we all have the ability to do it. And I don't think, Taylor Swift's ability to do it with billions of people is necessarily any more important than the person who lives next door that needs to make impact in the community. I think it's all important.
I really like that. I was thinking about that idea of a lot of times I find in the work that we do is, we're maybe sponsored by the C-suite, but we're typically working with people that are maybe like one layer down or a couple layers down. And then we also work with folks who are just sort of in the day-to-day operations, really operationalizing DEI and organizational culture work. And I was thinking about how we have, sometimes people have these really lofty goals. They're like, I'm going to single-handedly change this organization. And I'm like, this is tens of thousands of people. Good luck to you in my head. And so I really like the idea of bring it to your level of like, let's be realistic about what is the sphere that you have, but then how can you really apply yourself and as you are creative and sort of being that way of thinking, what is it that I can bring to this? So,
but can I say something about that?
Please.
Even if you're like, just little old me, I can't impact tens of thousands of people. You actually might, right? And maybe you don't in that moment, but the ripple effect, the long term, and there, like, I have some personal stories of my own in the book where I talk about that, and other people do too, where it's like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just following my heart and doing what's important, right? And then you look down the road and you see how it did spread and grow. Actually, that's the subtitle of my book also is Let Your Inner Spark Ignite a Change Reaction, right? And opposed to a chain reaction, right? But like, you could literally be impacting hundreds, thousands, millions of people, and you don't even realize that's what to come. But, just focus on the one thing right there in front of you and do it really well.
I love it. Give us a small spoiler. What is one of the things from your own experience where you, maybe when you were like earlier in your career, where you were able to create some change, even if you didn't hold that title? I think that could be really valuable for folks to hear.
Well, the story that I tell in the book, and I don't want to give away the full spoilers.
You don't have to. You can give us just like
after
a teaser.
3, but I talk about, this was actually outside of work, where it was a stage where my husband and I had just gotten engaged. We've been together forever now, 20 some odd years.
We don't have to ask how old you are. We won't do it.
Proud of it. I just hit the big 50. I'm proud of it.
Nice.
But, we had just gotten engaged right after same-sex marriage had been nationally legalized. And about to send out our wedding announcements and blah, blah, blah. And a really dear person in my life simultaneously sent out an email to their entire list saying, oh my gosh, they're allowing same-sex marriage. We need to stop this, sign this petition. I'm like, so in that moment, it's like, I mean, the pain and the confusion and the anger, right? This is courage here. Do I say, I'm done with you? I don't need you in my life. Or do I say, I'm going to stay in the game? I'm going to open up and share with you who I am and what's important to me. And I'm going to hope you listen. And I want to understand what's going on with you, where we might see things very differently, and to stay open and honest. And I talk about how that's exactly what happened with this friendship. One of the most important friendships I have. And through the years, I didn't know where this person's mind was in terms of same-sex marriage, right? I mean, I'm married now. We have kids now, right? And then lo and behold, years later, this person ended up doing something that was seen by millions of people, addressing this exact thing in our relationship and having a completely different perspective. I had no idea, right? So you just need to be true to yourself and what's important to you. Be courageous.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, the idea that, it is very easy to sort of, especially in these times, I think, where a lot of people are really thinking, what does this have to do with me? And we are very inward thinking. And so to take this sort of stand to say, yeah, maybe it would be easier for me to just say goodbye to this friendship and this relationship that I've had. But instead to say, whether you were consciously thinking about it or not, what are those sort of ripple effects down the line of, if I can help this person kind of understand the impact of what they're doing, that has a chance to make a lot of sort of a ton of change down the line, because then it helps obviously your specific situation, but then it also means other folks can also understand that their words have meaning, and then it sort of grows. And so I really love that. I think, you kind of touched on something. I was, same-sex marriage obviously at the time was very divisive. I feel like I'm an older millennial, and I remember when it passed, and it was super exciting. And I'm from a fairly conservative state in Indiana that was hesitant, is probably the nice way to put how they felt about same-sex marriage. But we currently live in very polarized times, socially, politically, you name it. And, one of the spaces where we've seen an increase in vitriol and polarization is around the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its place in society and the workplace. And, like us at Equity at Work, you've worked in DEI, you've worked in organizational culture and leadership. And so I want to bring this to that level. We sort of talked a little bit about some of those takeaways, but if there was one or two sort of key nuggets that you would think that leaders can apply in their day-to-day work to kind of remain resilient and sort of maintain that sort of passion that they have and not get burnt out, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm thinking of two things. One is kind of something that a way that I've always looked at the work, and another connects to what we were just talking about. First, let me just start by saying, yes, we are living in such insanely polarized times. It's painful. It's so sad. And, for various reasons, diversity, equity, and inclusion has become DEI, which has this, target on its back. And in many people's eyes, this very virtuous thing with the best intentions has become, in some people's eyes, an evil target, which is sad. So one thing I'll say is, we were, just talking about that idea of sticking with it. I don't think we should write people off so quickly. Yeah. And I think a big part of it is that things sometimes are twisted, right? Yeah. There's complete misunderstanding sometimes over what something is and isn't. Sometimes things are done not in the best way or wrong, and then people will be like, the whole thing's bad, I'm out, none of it. All of that can go on. So I do think kind of to stick with it for the long game, we have to keep trying to explain what we're going for here and what this work is and what it isn't. And let me say, this work is super tricky and complicated and emotionally exhausting on top of all of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think our efforts to continue to express what we're going for and to listen to people when they have pushback and to try to see if we can find a way to get on the same page, as exhausting as that can be, as much as some of us might be like, I am done. I think in some ways that is still required if we want to kind of come around the bend of all of this. The second thing I'm going to say is kind of the way I've always described this work, even long before the pushback, the intense pushback, is at the core of it all, we are talking about some very basic things. In my mind, these are non-negotiable human standards, right? Respect, fairness, dignity, psychological safety, giving people an opportunity to thrive, making sure that the way we communicate can be heard by people with all different experiences, right? That shouldn't be political. That should just be human basics. And that's why even as a DI leader, I love this work, and I loved doing it and supporting others. And I still, as a consultant and coach, I still get such gratification out of it, because once people understand what it is, it's oh, wait, yeah, that's the stuff of course I want. Oh, that's the stuff that I can do too. You don't have some magic wand. You're teaching me how to do my job better, how to write a better job description, how to have more diverse perspectives at the executive table, right? How not to count someone out in an interview who might bring something incredible to our team, and for some reason my mind told me, nope, not them, right? Like,
Yep.
so these are human basics. So I think in these really divisive and polarizing times, if we can try just to get back to those human basics, and that might mean in some ways like stripping away the language, right? If the language is going to shut people down, or they're like, nope, not that, right? How can we get back to this idea of civility and opportunity and making people feel so valuable that they're going to come to work and give their best and stick with our company? Because like, one of the biggest issues we have right now in the workplace, employee engagement, is at like an all-time low.
Yep.
Right? Like, everyone feels like they're on such shaky ground. People are having a hard time focusing on their job. People are willing to leave in a heartbeat because they feel like they don't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mass layoff. I've been with a company for 20 years, and then in 10 minutes, you just told me bye. Like, so, I don't know.
No,
That's how I see this work. So we keep doing the work. We might just not use the same language.
I totally agree. I think the number of times I've gone into, a meeting with one of our partners or a client, and I've said, you have to play the game of thinking that everyone in this building, if, all things being equal, they would choose not to be here. They would choose to be with their families or with their friends or doing anything else. But they have to be here because that's the world we live in. And so you got to make it acceptable to be here. And so you got to, like, the engagement thing is like, you got to make it so that people feel really excited that they're not thinking about the things that they're not doing in their life that they're here for. And so it's, how do you make it? And it's also finding those basics of what is it that people are looking for? You want respect. I want respect. Let's agree to respect each other. Yeah. I want to feel included. You want to feel included. Let's include each other. And so it really is, I love that, of that little, just like, go back to the things that are just, it's not to get, religious, but it's that golden rule of, I want to treat you in the way that I would also want to be treated, and I want to treat you in the way that you want to be treated.
So how can platinum level, right?
Yeah, platinum level, right? How can I treat you? Yeah. And so it's just, it's like, if I think about it is that I want to be respected and included and feel like I belong at work, I can make a safe bet that other people also want that. And so how can we commit to those things so even when there's disagreements, we can still commit to it?
Please. With what you said. Yeah. It's interesting the way you said, like, none of these people want to be here. They want to be at home or doing something else. I actually don't look at it that way.
No, it's totally fine. I try to cushion it and not be like, you're doing something wrong. But I very much think of it as like, if we're really thinking about it from a level of like granular human motivation, it is rare that a person would say to themselves, the thing that I would want to be doing is sitting in this meeting about how low our employee engagement is.
Sure.
And
but here's one thing that I think about a lot, is that idea of like feeling a sense of purpose, right? And it kind of, my book's not about find your purpose, but like, I think when we are trying, for instance, to create change and have impact, it becomes, at least at that stage of your life, a sense of purpose, right? Yeah. And you are passionate to go and to do that. And I think that there is potential, even in the workplace, for people to be like, I actually love what we are doing here, or I love the feeling I get when I'm here doing what I need to be doing. Even if it is mopping the floors. I love coming here because when I step in, people give me a smile and they ask me how my day was and they think of me, right? And like, it feels like a community of support. And I feel like I do belong there, even if I look totally different from everybody else, right? So I think there actually is an opportunity, even in the workplace, to make it a place where people hopefully in one way or another can feel some sense of passion and like a great human experience. You're not always going to get that. That might be very Pollyanna pie in the sky of me, but like, let's shoot for that. Why not?
No, I think so. And I think, let me evolve my language from what I was saying, is that I think it's, how can we make the workplace that? How can you make it a place where people feel that level of engagement, that they're not thinking to themselves, I'd rather be out fishing or doing whatever it is that
Right.
people do outside of work. Everybody has their own thing. It is. It's like, how can we make this a place where people feel like they're seen and valued, and
Yeah.
it is an equally important part of their life to those other really important things like their family and their friends and their communities. So how do you sort of elevate the workplace to that thing? And so I love the idea of tying it to,
Yeah.
purpose and passion, because that's what people want. Is they don't want to feel like they're going into the drudgery. They want to feel like they're going to a place where they're excited and
Totally.
engaged, and they can make a difference.
I want to love fishing and driving my Amazon truck,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to be proud to work for Amazon because they are doing this thing in education and blah, blah. I don't know, maybe that's a bad example, but what I'm saying? Like, I do think there's potential to make people feel so proud of where they work and whatever their role is, know that they're contributing to the greater good. And I think that's kind of the point of my book anyways. And I think so much DEI work also is like, I'm thinking outside of myself and on behalf of others. Like, why did I enter LGBTQ work originally? Because I had a really hard time growing up, right? And
Yep.
why did I specifically go into LGBT work originally in college campuses? Because when I was in college, like, I was closeted. There was no one who was out around me. I felt so uncomfortable, like a fish out of water. Why did I go into that work? Because I didn't want anybody else to feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you have that purpose and it's beyond you, even if it came from, I talk about like micro moments and my micro, right? Like these little things happen, but they imprint on you and they drive you to go want to do things to create something better for others.
No, I love it. I'm thinking to the client we had where the initial scope of our work with them was that they realized that they had a number of employees who identified as transgender.
Yeah.
Whether or not they had, transitioned or, had any medical treatments or any sort of hormone, they identified as transgender, and they're all over the country. And so they're in communities, some that are very supportive and then some that are not. And so they wanted to have a guide for leaders for how to support people who were going through the transition process,
Sure.
whatever that meant for that person. And the most valuable person I talked to was a person who had transitioned at a different company and had an unbelievably negative experience,
Yep.
and ended up leaving because of that experience. And their stated purpose was, I don't want anyone here to experience what I experienced.
Right.
And so how can I help make this? And I mean, that person, I would not have gotten that done without them. And so I think that is that idea of just, and they felt so engaged and they thanked me for getting to, I was like, why are you I should thank you. Thank you for sharing with me those things. We are running on time. So I am going to say our last question, which is, Tom, where can people find you and where can people find It Lit a Fire?
Thank you for asking. So I am now operating through my company, Next Level Impact. So the website is thenextlevelimpact.com. That's me, Tom Bourdon. Connect with me on LinkedIn also. And yeah, nowadays I'm doing a lot of work connected with the book, obviously, but I also do executive coaching and impact coaching and lots of trainings and workshops and consulting. And I just feel really blessed, even kind of with the transition of like, wow, DEI jobs, those are hard to come by nowadays. You know what? I am focusing on the work that I love and the impact that I want to have on the world. So that's what I'm doing. My book, It Lit a Fire, is, I think you're going to love it. There's over 20 stories. About half of them are from notable public figures, like you mentioned, and then just everyday change agents also. These are all people who have been in my life and had an impact in one way or another. And they have incredible stories. And I think we all have an incredible story. And I think we all have the ability to have impact. So the book, It Lit a Fire, can be found at itlitafire.com. You can also go to my website, which the first one is going to auto direct you to anyways, but you can get the book there. And then it's available everywhere else, like Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, all of those places. You should be able to find it. And there's also a companion impact journal that
Very
if
cool.
people are interested in that, where you can kind of reflect more on the prompts and the exercises that are in the book.
I love it. Well, Please, everyone, go out and get Dr. Tom Bourdon's debut book, It Lit a Fire. And then also you can find Tom at Next Level Impact. Tom, just thank you so much for joining us here in your DEI Minute and sharing your insights and knowledge with us. We are just so grateful to have had you.
Thanks so much, Jamey.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
That's a wrap. I'm Jamey Applegate, and that's your DEI Minute for today. Thank you for listening. Please be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and don't forget to leave us a review. If you ever have questions, please visit our website or send us an email. You can also sign up for our newsletter and follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Links to everything can be found in the episode notes. This episode was edited and produced by Podgrowth with podcast art by me, Jamey Applegate.